This week in CIST 1530 on Chapter 6, we're going to look at masks and channels. Now, masks are a powerful way to control both where and how much of an effect changes an image. We're going to look at some of the extensive Photoshop masking features. We're going to create a mask and refine it. We're also looking at the relationship between masks, selections, and channels. We see on the screen, this will be our starting document, and our end result will be this image here. So some of the tasks that you're going to do in this chapter is to create a mask to remove a subject from a background. We'll look at how to refine a mask to include complex edges, create a quick mask to make changes to a selected area, edit a mask using the Properties panel. You also manipulate an image using Puppet Warp, save a selection as an alpha channel, view a mask using the alpha channel or using the channels panel, and load a channel as a selection. So we'll talk about the difference between the different masks and channels, because I know that these can be kind of confusing. We can think of a quick mask mode. It's basically a selection marquee that's going to be shown in a different form. Both these are going to be temporary and will disappear as soon as the current selection is changed. An alpha channel, that's going to be a channel that's used for a selection. It's kind of like a quick mask that can be saved within the document, but it's not going to apply to any layer until you load it into that selection. Now, alpha channels are different from channels that make up the printable image. For example, the red, green, blue channels in an RGB image. And you can apply alpha channels to image channels. The layer mask is an alpha channel that's going to be tied to a specific layer. So if we look at our layers panel here for our starting document, we'll see the channels that we have. Currently, we have the RGB, and then we have the individual colors. Now we can turn those off, and we'll see how those affect the image when we cut 2 of the 3 off. Looking at our ending document on the channels, we can see that we do have some other channel down here, a model outline channel. That's been added over into our layers panel. Okay, to make a mask, we want to make sure that we're using the correct tool. For this, we can go to Layer, and then you can create a layer mask if you've made a selection. And we're going to go over some of these options real quick. Let me make a quick selection here. So I'm going to use the magnetic lasso tool. And I'm just going to make a quick selection that's not that good. So if I'm wanting to hide everything else, I can go to Layer and come to Layer Mask, and I have the option here to Reveal All, which will reveal everything in the channel, in the layer. Hide All will reveal everything in the layer. I can choose Reveal Selection, which is going to keep what I have selected, and it's going to hide everything else. The other option in here would be to hide the selection. Okay, so from this, I'm going to keep everything that's not selected and hide the area I have selected. You also have the layer mask option in your layers panel, which is basically going to be the same as the reveal selection. Now, once I get here, if I say that I don't like this, or if I need to make some changes, I can adjust the mask as well. Okay, so we're going to start working through the chapter. And we'll start using the selected mask. Well, first of all, let's discuss the difference between a layer mask and a vector mask and a clipping mask. And we'll discuss different masks. All right, layer mask, that's an alpha channel. It's attached to a specific layer file. It controls what part of that layer is going to be seen or revealed or hidden. You will have the white thumbnail that's going to appear next to the layer. In this, you will see in white what is revealed, what is black has been hidden, and you'll see that it is linked to that layer. A vector mask, it's a layer mask made of a resolution-independent vector objects, not the pixels. This is something that's useful in precise mask edges control is more important than being able to edit the mask with a brush. You will create a vector mask by going to layer and then choose vector mask, and then whether to reveal all or hide all, or choose a current path. So if I am going to create a path, which I can then choose the current path. Okay, so this will give me more, based on the path, I can then create the mask. Clipping mask, this is a mask that's going to use a layer to mask another layer. So for example, if I right click the layer, I can choose create clipping mask. And you'll see that nothing happens because the layers are both full screens. So we'll create a text layer. And let's make this a little bit bigger font. This, and then we're going to create a clipping mask. So now I have placed the model image inside of the text. And you see I can still move her around. And you can see that she's now been put in that. So I'm using a clipping mask to put the two layers together and incorporate them, and using one layer to mask the other layer. All right, so to start, we're going to talk about using the select and mask and selecting a subject. You want to make sure that you're using the correct tools when you're creating a mask. So the benefit of the selected mask is how the quick selection tool can quickly find the edges by recognizing the content, and also how the refined edge brush, it automates making the masking complicated edges like hair and fur. So in this, it's best to use the quick selection and refine edge brushes tool to quickly create an accurate initial mask. Now, if you use the brush tool instead of this, instead of the refine edge brush along edges such as the hair and outlines, it's going to be less effective. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose select, and we're going to choose selected mask. All right, so this is going to bring up our selected mask properties. You'll see some options that we have over to the right, where we have the view mode. We have some options in here where the transparency can be chosen, so we can see the image behind it. Right now it's set at 20%. So as I increase, you can see that you start seeing the background image more. I'll put this back at 20%. I do have the refine mode. I can make this color aware or object aware. You see it's going to give me an option here because it's going to be different edges based on the choices I've made. Do have some presets I can save in this. To the left, I have some options on my tools. So I have my quick selection tool. I have my refine edge brush tool. So if I need to adjust the mask, I can. I have my brush tool, object selection tools, lasso tools, hand tool, and also the zoom tool. Now, when I have one of these selected, you'll see in the option bar at the top, I have also options based on each tool that I select. To the right, back in the options or the properties menu, I do have more settings in here as well. So we're going to start with using our quick selection, and we'll make our selection of our woman here that we're going to keep. So you see the selection being made. We do have some options in here. So right now I'm set on onion skin. Choose overlay, and I can see what I have not selected. So I want to make sure that I make a decent first selection. All right, so I'm going to go back and redefine this as I make my changes. I want to make sure that go through and discard that. And so my select subject, so now I've made selection here. You also see I've got an option here to refine hair. Let me go back to this where we started. Go to select. I'm going to select a mask. Change my view to the overlay. So now I have this red hue. So I got that transparent red color. What it's showing as red is because I don't have anything masked. So here I'm going to choose select subject, let Photoshop do its thing, and now it's made my selection for me. So it's identified the subject there. So I'm going to choose the option here, and I want to change this to 15. And I'm going to look for any areas that's been missed. First, I'm going to zoom in so we can see the areas that we're going to be looking at for a quick selection. And we want to make sure that we try not to get the background area. So we see we do have some of the background area. So I can use the remove from selection and refine this if I need to clean up that area. So you don't have to be exact by using the quick selection tool, because it's going to try to find the content, find the, in this case, the subject. But if you have to remove something from your selection, you can use the minus button with the correct tool selected. All right, so we're going to go back over to the view again, and we're going to look at the on layers. We'll see how our image looks on the layer. Now, one thing you want to check is the edges. So you may want to zoom in, and you see here the percentage. I'll let you know how much you're zoomed in and seeing what has actually been masked out. So you can go in and make sure that you don't have any of the background areas still selected. You see, I do have some of the areas selected here. And I may want to adjust the area to refine my mask. So I can remove some of that background area. Now I'm not getting a perfect cut. So I am going to undo that and try this again. Get something I'm happy with. Now, when you create a mask, you're creating something that's going to be temporary. It's something that's non-destructive. So those images, those pixels are still there. I can also go in and refine my mask by choosing the Refine Edge Brush tool. Now, a lot of times with this, you may want to make sure that you're zoomed in. So if I decided that I don't like the way this area looks, I can come in and refine this. I can adjust the brush size, hardness, and the spacing. In this case, I'm going to put it at 20 pixels with the hardness set to 100. We'll come back to the view and choose overlay. Let's see, I want to make sure that I can see what I am adding or removing. So I'm going to go back over this area and refine my edges. You may also find areas such as this where the background bled through the girl's hair. And so I'm going to adjust my brush size. You can see I'm going back over the area to remove the background that showed through her hair. Also check to see how my mask is going to look by using my view mode. So in this case, I'm going to choose black and white. See how my mask will look. So everything that is in white is what will be seen. Everything that's in the black is what has been masked out. So this is a place you can come in and readjust your image as needed to. Use your refine edge brush tool to refine areas. I do recommend zooming in on those areas and adjusting your brush size as well. We do have some global refinements. You can adjust these settings as well, depending on the selection you created. See, I can smooth the image, my selection. I can feather it, which gives it a blur between the image and the mask. I can choose the contrast. I can shift the edges. In this case, I'm going to put it back to 0%. So for your assignment, you're going to move the smooth to 5. The feather is going to be changed feather's going to be left alone. The contrast is going to be changed to 20%. And we're going to move the shift edge to -15%. Okay, after you get through this, you want to make sure that you look over the image on layers. Make any adjustments that you see that you need to make. I'll choose my output settings once I'm through to complete this mask. We'll zoom in at 200% on this to check. See if there's anything that's coming through the mask. I'm going to set the decontaminate colors. And with this, you're going to decontaminate. This is going to remove unwanted artifacts, reduce the amount of the effect looks. You want to do that to get the look you want. So in the book, they're going to remove this to 25%. You notice I've got some errors here. All right, so for this, I'm going to come back in, refine my mask. In this case, I've just removed that. Not what I want to do. Wrong option chosen. Once again, I've got some background. And this is a lot of tweaking and a lot of adjustments until you can get the hair exactly how you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on and click OK. Now, once you get to this area, if you need to adjust your mask, you can always select your mask. You've got some options you can change here. You can refine, select a mask. On the brush tool, see that I can still adjust the mask here. So if I'm painting with the mask selected in the layers, if I'm painting with black, it's going to hide the selection. I want to reveal it, I would paint in white. And you'll see that it will adjust the mask. So you'll see I've got some hairs here that I may want to remove. So I can clean this up. Even after I leave the area, the selected mask, I still have the options to adjust the mask as needed in my image. And this is one of the things about using a mask over deleting pixels, is that I can go back and adjust as needed. All right, so it's not perfect. In reality, if this was my image, I would probably remove that hair as well. Okay, I can also use this puppet warp. I can use this to move part of my image. Before we do that, though, let's look at creating a quick mask. So let's say that I don't like the frames for this. So let's hide the magazine layer. We'll make sure that we have the model copy selected. We're going to change the color of her glasses. So let's see over here on the left in our tools panel. This will put us in the edit and quick mask mode. So we see that we have our selected layers now got a red highlight over it. So we're going to choose our brush tool. We're going to set our size of our brush to 13 pixels. Leave the set the hardness at 100. And we click somewhere outside to hide our options. Click undo to undo that one. We'll make sure that the mode is set to normal. And what we'll do, we'll create a mask. So I'm going to zoom in. And you'll see the red is being painted over this, over her glasses. Change to create the mask. And you can use a combination of the zoom tool and the paintbrush to create your mask. You want to make sure that you get every bit of the frame in. So you may have to adjust the size of the brush. Make the selection. Now, I'm not going to be really precise on it just for the interest of time. So I'm not going to worry about being 100% accurate on this. Okay, so I've made my selection. When I'm painting with this, if I paint with black, it's going to add to the mask, which would be the red overlay. If I paint with white as my color, it's going to remove the area from the mask. And if I paint with gray, it will reduce the opacity. So we'll click the quick mask button again. See, I have my area selected. So I'm going to choose select and then inverse. From here, I'm going to adjust the colors of these glasses. So I'll go to image adjustment, and then we'll choose the hue and saturation. And you'll see as I adjust this, you'll see the color of the frames changing. Once again, you want to make sure that you have a good selection, not the selection like I made. So in this case, I'm going to set this to 70% to give her some green glasses. We'll click OK. We'll compare it to our solution. So we've got the same glasses. All right, so using Puppet Warp, I'll make sure I deselect. I'm going to come into, well, Puppet Warp is going to allow me the option to move items. So you see how her head is tilted up in the solution, in the final, and now she's looking straight ahead in this one. So we're going to change that. We're going to add a grid around the model, and in here we're going to add pins so that we can adjust the image. So here we're going to choose Edit, and we'll come down to Puppet Warp. You see that we'll add the grid around our image. And as we click, we'll add pins to the area we click. So pins are going to be like locking the area in. That is what we will use to adjust. Now, we want to make sure that with this image that we do place the pins all the way around her body, that we want to keep in the same position. So we don't want this area to move. So this is what we're locking in. Stay the same. And we see that when we move over, once we have these selected, we want to move the head. Now, I went a little obsessive with this. Your textbook says about 10 or 12 pins should work. So now I'm going to hold down my Alt key. And when I click on a pin, you'll see I get the double arrows. And in here, I can adjust these pins as well. I did not mean to do that. So let me go back through here and redo this. So I'm going to place the pins again. And this is kind of tricky sometimes to get the exact, there we go. So now when I rotate, you see that I can rotate her head to give her a different look by holding down the Alt key and clicking on the option. I can also come to the top and choose the rotation as well. So we'll click the check button to submit. So now we've moved her head. We'll see the undo and then redoing the puppet warp. We'll see the difference in the head movement. So now we're going to look at creating a alpha channel, which when we look at our ending document, we'll have our model outline. We cut these off, we'll see that what we're going to wind up creating. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by holding down Control and clicking the model icon. You see that we have a selection has been made around our model. We will choose Select, and we're going to come down to Save Selection. And we'll make sure that it stays in the document, new channel. And we're going to name this Model Outline. Now we're not going to see anything happen in the Layers panel or image window, but we will see it in our Channels panel. Okay, so we've now created the model outline. All right, so we're going to create a new layer. We're going to name this layer Shadow. And we're going to make sure that it's in between the model copy and the model. And see how we look currently with our background. So with our shadow layer selected, we're going to make sure that we come up to Select and Mask. So we're back in this area. We're going to use the view. We're going to choose this on black. And we're going to change the shift edge to +36. In our output settings, we're going to make sure it's output to menu. To have it as selection, we're going to click OK. All right, so our output settings, we're going to put the output to selection and click OK. So we now have a selection. From in here, we're going to edit, and we're going to come to fill. And we're going to choose the content of black. Blending mode is going to be set to normal, and the opacity is set to 100. We click OK. We'll hide the model layer for a second. Now we've got the outline. We're going to change the opacity to 30%. So currently, right now, we're not going to see it because it is hidden by the model. We'll make sure that we deselect the image. We're going to rotate the image so it will be seen. So we're going to choose Edit and then Transform and Rotate. This is something you can rotate this by hand, or we can choose to type in the settings right here. We also want to reposition this. So on the X, I'm going to change this to 545. And I'm going to click the check mark. Okay, at the end of the chapter, I'm going to review my image and compare it to the ending document. And so this is what our image should look like at the end. And that's how we use a mask. Now, very quickly, one of the easiest ways to create a mask. So I'm going to hide these and go back to our original. One of the easiest ways when you're creating a mask is to make your selection around your image. Go to Layer, Layer Mask, and then reveal the selection or hide the selection. In this case, I'm going to reveal the selection. From this area, I'm going to use my brush tool and my combination of whites and black paint to paint over the areas. So that I can make my selection and adjust this as needed. Now, if you notice, I'm not being too careful about what I'm hiding because I am going to go back and readjust the mask with my reveal and my zoom in. To me personally, I find this to be a quicker process. And one I'm personally more comfortable using this way. But as I've said, Photoshop gives you multiple different ways to perform the same task. So there is no 100% right or wrong way to do a task. It's going to be something that you become comfortable using the different tools and the options. I personally feel like I have more control creating a mask this way. Some parts can be more time consuming, but like dealing with the hair. but it's one of those things that I do feel more comfortable using this type of mask. But you have many different options of how to choose your mask.